Yes, so call the meeting to order. We'll turn it over to.
We're going to test to see if there's feedback here, so maybe turn that light off. The mic's on. I think it's the. Yeah. Is there any other feedback? I don't know.
Hold, please. I can hear it coming out of here.
These are IT. You're looking at it.
Did that work?
Turn this on.
Should we try with the mic?
I don't know.
What about the volume? Is the volume about this?
Yeah, that's all.
It's gotta be a second.
Just bear with us a minute.
I know, I'm like. Is it? No, it's coming out of here.
And if we need to disconnect that.
Okay, I'm just.
All right, I'm gonna get people moving forward, Andrew, if that's okay. Yeah, okay, good. All right, well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming, everybody. I'm Matt Welter, founder of Dormy House, and I'm very excited to be here tonight to talk about Ocean Park and the work that we poured into this project over the last 2 years. We're here because we all understand that housing is the greatest need facing the city of Bandon. I was invited into this project in 2023 after your teams correctly identified a growing gap in workforce housing and began searching for a real long-term solution. While I bring my professional experience in development and workforce housing to this effort, my connection to the project goes much deeper, as I am a Bandon homeowner. I've developed workforce housing for Bandon Dunes Golf Resort, and I care about this place and this community and have a vested interest in its long-term stability. Tori and Shauna have placed their trust in me to help carry this project forward. We've developed a plan that creates more affordable housing opportunities so local teachers, city staff, and Bandon employees can live and work in this community. And tonight, we're excited to walk you through that plan. No one can do this alone. The depth and importance of this project requires experts in the housing industry, engineering, construction, design, and communications, as well as local community leaders, of which many I see out here. I've assembled an incredibly talented team who are all working towards the common goal of creating quality workforce housing that serves local employees and families who want to live here and raise their children here. I'd like to introduce you to Alex Palm and Deb Flaggen, who are going to take you through the details of our presentation. Alex is an engineering consultant who has led the design and engineering for Ocean Park, and Deb Flaggen, who has worked tirelessly to help this project come to life, is the VP of Community Engagement for Hayden Homes, a partner in the project. And I'd like to thank Tori for his incredible stewardship of this project on behalf of the city and his assisting the community with his decades of public service experience. Although Deb, Alex, and Tori are presenting to you today, or tonight, I guess, this project is supported by so many others behind the scenes who play a vital role in bringing Ocean Park to life. I'd like to acknowledge Stephanie Hadley and Dana Nichols with Southern Oregon Coast Regional Housing and their support and contribution to this presentation and their work in community engagement and in the Community Land Trust. This project represents more than just a single development. It's a stepping stone towards sustainable public-private partnerships that will be a model for other communities in the area and in the state. But most importantly, it's an investment in the future of Bandon. I'm very fortunate to work with such a talented team who can help make this project a reality. And by the end of the night, I think you'll see just how motivated and committed we are in the mission of Ocean Park. This is a novel project, so thank you all. You should absolutely be commended for this idea. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a 100% community-oriented project. I'm proud of this team, I'm proud of this plan, but I'm most proud of the lasting contribution it will make to the whole of Bandon. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Tori.
Thanks, Matt. Next slide.
Yeah.
As a matter of background, I'd like to highlight some milestones that date back to 2022 when this project was first conceived. Back in August of 2022, the city approached the school district and expressed interest in collaborating with the district to construct a workforce housing project. Sites were identified that were vacant and underutilized, and with that, the proposal led to the development of a memorandum of understanding through December of 2022. The MOU set forth the spirit of collaboration between the city and the school district to facilitate workforce housing. In July of 2023, an RFP or request for proposals was circulated, and this was intended to solicit proposals from interested developers. A committee was assembled to select the preferred developer, which was Dormy House LLC. Following that, in June of 2024, an E&A, or an exclusive negotiation agreement, was entered into between the city, the school district, and the developer. And this set forth guidelines for entering into negotiations that would result in what we have to present to you this evening. And that is the November 2025 joint session. We felt it was important to present to both decision-making bodies concurrently so that when we unveil the concepts, that we could receive feedback and input from both decision-making bodies. And with that, next slide, if you would, please. I'd like to discuss the location of the property. So the subject property is centrally located in Bandon off 11th Street. 11th Street serves as the main entryway to Bandon High School, City Park, and state parks. The subject property is immediately bounded by 11th Street to the north. We have existing single-family residential to the west, undeveloped riparian wetland area to the south, some additional single-family residential to the southeast, and the existing ball fields owned and controlled by the school district to the west, or to the east, excuse me. These are photographs of the existing site conditions as viewed from 11th Street. This is taken from the adjacent parkway next to the football stadium. As you can see, we have existing mature trees and native vegetation landscape that exists on an unaffected, undeveloped property. I'd also like to highlight that in the slide, there are no public improvements within this stretch of 11th Street. So that means there's no curb, there's no gutter, and there's no sidewalks. Next slide. These are photographs from the interior portion of the subject property, again, identifying the existence of mature trees and native vegetation. Next slide, please. The subject site is comprised of properties both owned and controlled by the city and school district. The city parcels are identified in orange bound areas, whereas the purple denoted areas belong to the school district. So the combination of both the city and school district owned properties form the project site, which measures approximately 7.22 acres. Next slide. In December of 2023, an appraisal was conducted of the subject property, and the city portion of that property, measuring 3.07 acres, was appraised at $495,000. Whereas the school district property, measuring 4.15 acres, came in at approximately $705,000. Therefore, the combined valuation of the land is at $1.2 million, and that again equates to 7.22 acres. According to the proposal and the concept, the value of the land of $1.2 million would be offered as a subsidy to the developer in an effort to bring the construction cost and price point down so that it's more affordable, targeting the workforce housing population. The subject property is currently zoned R1 and public facility. The property will be required to be rezoned to a zoning designation of master plan development along with the entitlements, and this would allow for what we would consider to be a more specific planned unit development type of project that would accommodate the unique mix of housing that we're proposing. At this time, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Deb, who will discuss the current market value here in Bandon and also provide additional details about the project. Deb?
Thank you, Tori.
Oh, the mic. Do you know how to turn it on?
Just look it up.
I'm a tech person.
Madam Mayor, Madam Chair, Council, and board members, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. For the record, my name is Deb Flangen, and I'm Vice President with Simplicity Viking Homes. We are the partner and home builder for the Ocean Park community, and we're very, very excited to be here tonight. It was just about a year ago that Matt contacted me. He called up and said, "Hey, Deb, I hear that Hayden Homes has been working with cities across Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and have been building with employers as well as cities to bring workforce housing for their hardworking families. And he said, we have a very interesting community here in Bandon and a new RFQ that has come through. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to have Hayden Homes come over and look at building in Bandon. And so about a month later, I brought a couple of our team members over. We're located in Central Oregon, and I've been with Hayden Homes for 25 years. Our construction team came over, we looked at the site, and then we met with your great staff, Tori, and your staff in the city. And we sat down and went through the RFQ. And we learned about what the city council and the school district were proposing. And after that couple of days of being here in Bandon, I just was very impressed with what you're all doing here with your city. And I hope that you all recognize that this is not that common. There are city council members, there are school districts that are doing this, but doing this jointly and not only saying that this is a problem for our community to actually retain and keep our teachers and our staff, city staff, is unique. But the really unique thing is that you said, hey, let's come up with a way to actually fix it. And so I commend you for that. So today, I'm going to show you, start with the current housing market and how Hayden Homes looks at and evaluates a community to see if it makes sense to come in to understand what the affordability gap is in a community. And so specifically here, looking at the Coos County data, the median house price that is currently being sold in Coos County is $336,000. Specifically to the city of Bandon, the median home price that's selling in the last 12 months has been $515,000. And that gap is about $180,000 over what's happening in Coos County. And that's not unusual in some of these resort and more prestigious communities, which is what Bandon is. We're seeing that spread get further and further apart. Next slide, please. So this is, we call this the affordability triangle, and it's just an easy way to understand, or for me at least, to see what the gap is and what the individuals can afford that are living in your city. And so the middle line there that is at $83,000, that is the area median income that a family of four can afford in Coos County. In Coos County. And if you equate that over with a 7% interest, 30-year mortgage with a 5% down, that means that they can afford a $330,000 house. If you look at the actual median home price of $515,000, it means that it would take $130,000 for a family of four to be able to afford that $515,000 house. So that gap is $185,000. And that's why it's so difficult for you to have your workers actually living here in your beautiful town. So what we walked away with was saying, how can we bring a house to market that is going to be at the $330,000 mark? And so that's what we've been working on and have been for the last 12 months with Matt and Alex's team to come up with some different ideas. Next slide, please. So just to make sure that we're all thinking about what a Bandon school district employee makes and a city employee makes in the city of Bandon. This information is from the recent contract negotiations. The teacher's salary position, they're ranging somewhere from $45,000 to $85,000 for a full-time salary teacher, depending on their experience. And then the non-teacher salary positions are ranging between $19 and $26 an hour, which equates to basically $40,000 to $55,000 for a full-time non-teacher salary. Next slide. And looking at what the city of Bandon employees are making, they are ranging between $16 and $62, depending on the specific job and a full-time salary. That's equating to just about $32,000 up to $126,000 for a full-time employee. So over the last year, we have been working on some different developments that I'm going to hand over here to Alex. And Alex is going to take the current RFP, the original RFQ, and talk through some of the specifics about the site.
So thank you. Evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. For the record, my name is Alex Paul. I'm a civil engineer. I am president of IE Engineering. Our office is located in Roseburg, and I'm a lifelong Roseburg resident. I have enjoyed coming to Bandon my entire life. So, when Matt called me up and asked me to be part of this team, I was pretty stoked. So, before I get into the slides and all that, I do want to apologize for my raspy voice and my cough. I've got the cough drop here. I'll put it in. Definitely don't normally have this much water in front of me. I had the pleasure of attending my first parents' weekend at the University of Arizona and came back with the old fraternity flu. So I've been fighting that a little bit. So apologize for the cough and raspy voice. So anyway, our first step on this project, or really our first step on any project, is we evaluate the land, specifically to identify any constraints that exist on the property. We look at how we're going to serve the property with utilities, and we figure out what issues we might have with meeting local, state, and federal code requirements. Then we take all of that information and we use it to figure out what the best layout for the property is to maximize the space, but also bring something forward that is permittable. If we can't get permitted, we don't have a project. So as Tori mentioned, the original RFQ total property that was a little over 7 acres in size. It had property that fronted 11th, and also Allegheny. So our first blush look at it just on paper, we noticed that part of the property actually included a little section of left field of the varsity softball field and property that's just literally right behind the outfield fence. We also noticed that there was a creek running through the site, Gross Creek. So right up front, we knew that not all 7 of those acres was going to be developable. So our next step is we went and visited the site, and that was an eye-opener, as it often is. We first wanted to go take a look at tax lot 5100, which is in the southeast corner of the property. It's the 2 acres that fronts Allegheny, and we walked in circles and figured out real quickly there's no way to get there. For those of you who live here, Gross Creek it's a huge bog, cavern, marsh. It has a 100-foot wide riparian protection area over it. It also has a branch that literally goes out into the Allegheny right-of-way, making the Allegheny right-of-way completely unusable. To the south of that parcel is all existing homes, and I think 2 of them look kind of brand new. So we figured out real quickly that tax lot 5100, completely inaccessible and undevelopable. We next walked the rest of the site, and when we got to the back of the site, which is the south end of the site, and this was in March, when we first walked it, we got back there and I thought I was in Louisiana. There was this huge bayou swamp back there. And I was like, oh goodness, this looks like a wetland. So we had it delineated, and sure enough, we got a big wetland back there. So after our site visit, the initial 7+ acres got cut in half. So we're looking at 3.5 acres that's actually developable. And that 3.5 acres is this 150-foot to 200-foot wide kind of L that's about 800 feet long. And that has about 150 feet of frontage along 11th Avenue. That's the only way to access it. So the next thing we did is we look at, how we're going to serve this site with utilities. Can you go to the next slide? So for sewer, the nearest sewer is actually located at the intersection of 12th and Franklin. The problem is, and it's a little deceiving when you're out there, is that manhole is actually located about 5 feet above the average elevation of the site. So if we extend that line into the service site, it pops out of the ground. So to bring sewer to the site, we actually have to go all the way down 11th Street, almost to the intersection of Allegheny, and bring a sewer main coming up 11th into the site. And one of the things I want to comment on that, you're going to hear me say this a couple of times, is that bringing that sewer main up 11th Street is required, where we put 10 houses in there, that's where the sewer is going to go. Okay, so that cost is fixed regardless of how many houses we put on there. Now for water, you have a 10-inch water line in 11th Avenue, which is great. 10-inch water line is good. For residential development, we know we need a fire flow of 1,000 gallons a minute. So if we have one long dead-end line going into the site, we're not going to get fire flows of 1,000 gallons a minute. So for the water system, we're going to have to loop that system, and we're going to loop that system specifically with 2 connections into 11th Street. So when we need that fire flow, we have fire coming from both directions on 11th. Okay, so that looped water system, again, we're going to need it whether we put in 6 houses or 60. It's what's going to be needed for that 1,000 gallons a minute. For storm, the storm's pretty easy on the site because everything drains down to the wetlands or into Gross Creek. What's not great from a storm standpoint with the site is that, and I'm sure you guys are all aware of this, the entire neighborhood to the west dumps out into that 12th Street right of way, and there's this man-made ditch that is cut right through the middle of this property that we're going to have to put in a 24-inch culvert and storm drain pipe to convey that property, or to convey all that stormwater through the property and into Gross Creek where it currently goes. Again, this is going to be a requirement regardless of how many houses we put on the site. So for all of those utility improvements, we're looking at roughly 2,000 feet of 8-inch sewer main. I'm estimating we need 7 manholes along that 2,000 feet. We're going to need 1,100 feet of 8-inch water line. Probably going to have 4 fire hydrants on that. And we're going to have 900 feet of 24-inch storm drain pipe. And again, that's regardless of whether we've got 10 houses or 100. The improvement cost to do all of that, push $1 million. So I want you to remember that. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, the main portion of this development land is this kind of L-shaped 150 to 200 foot wide, 800 foot long section that only accesses off of 11th Street. I want to point out that that 150 to 200 foot wide developable area also has to include the public road and the public right of way that can get used to access all this. So what we really end up with is 100 to 150 foot wide area that we can develop homes in, which that's not why I end up doing an apartment complex. It doesn't give us a whole lot of flexibility on the depth of the lots. It also doesn't allow for rear access or rear garage or any of the, I'll call it kind of the cool stuff that other communities are doing. And it just leaves us with this really skinny little piece. So all the issues I've mentioned today, none of them are as impactful as having only one access into the site. When you have only one access, you run into some really big issues due to fire life and safety concerns. And those are rules that have been developed and modified over decades and decades, and they usually get updated when bad things happen. So those are rules we like to follow. We typically do not ask for variances on fire life and safety issues. Okay, so one of those rules, which is baked into your city code, is we can only have a dead-end cul-de-sac that's 400 feet long. And that 400 feet is a pretty normal requirement around various cities in the state of Oregon. So that's kind of a line in the sand that we aren't proposing we're going to jump over with this layout. Another rule we need to follow and abide by is the Oregon State Fire Code allows only 30 homes to be located off of one access. As soon as we get to 31, we need 2 accesses. So with all that information, with the current RFP land, this is the layout that works with the current code. We show a 400-foot long dead-end cul-de-sac. Along that frontage, we can fit 21 single-family homes. As I mentioned before, don't have room or good location for apartments. We don't develop the last 300 plus feet of the site, as that would require a dead-end road over 100 feet, which isn't allowed. We do avoid the wetlands. And we also don't develop the area that is right behind the varsity softball field. You know, we leave those areas as undeveloped, so we don't have housing that literally shares the outfield fence as their backyard fence. And I do want to point out that even if we came forward and requested a variance so we can have a cul-de-sac longer than 400 feet, which again, not great practice, we could only add 9 additional residential units without the second access. So at the end of the day, our initial due diligence concluded that the current RFP site, I mean, it literally gets crunched in every direction. And I know initially we were hoping to put a ton of lots here, and 21 is what we came up with. And I turn it back over to Deb, and she's gonna talk a little bit about what type of housing we put on those 21 lots.
Thanks, Alex. So this is layout number 1, and this is with the 21 units. Specifically, you can see you're basically doing a little bit of improvement on 11th Street, but it really is just the corner access there. The rest of the 11th Street would not have improvements on it. These 21 units also would be, we worked to bring the most affordable housing units in based on the size of these home sites, just keeping in mind that we're trying to bring in a price point of $330,000. And so the types of homes that we are suggesting that we would build here would range between 1,000 square feet and 1,425 square feet. And I'll show you those 3 layouts of the plans that we're suggesting. Number 1 is a 1,000 square foot home. It's our Alpine home. It's 2 bedroom, 1.5 bath. And you can see that there's some interior photos on each one of these homes. Next slide, please. And specifically for this home, it's a 2-story home that has a main living area. It does have a power bath down on the first floor, and then 2 bedrooms upstairs that do have a shared bath. It does have a stackable washer and dryer upstairs in this unit. The second floor plan is our cedar, which is 1,425 square feet. This is actually a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. This is actually the largest of the 3 homes. And this has a little bit of a different layout. It does have a open concept downstairs. You do have the stairway going straight up from the living room. Next slide, please. And there is there's 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms upstairs in this cedar home. And then the third concept is our 1,268 square foot house. This is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. Next slide. And this home consists of 3 bedrooms upstairs, 2 bathrooms down, 3 bedrooms upstairs with 2 baths. It also does have a powder room downstairs with some extra storage units as well. So that would range again from 1,000 square feet to the 1,450 square feet. Next slide. So when you look at this layout, the layout would consist of 21 single-family homes, ranging again from 1,000 to 1,425 square feet. The subsidy on the land that we had talked about was the $1.2 million. And then the total development cost that Alex went through is right at just under $3 million for all of that land development. That means that each one of those 21 units would have $141,000 of cost just for the land development portion of the of the home site. That means that when you put these homes, even though they're affordable as we believe that could be done on these 21 units, the starting price of those homes will be about $433,000, just because the infrastructure cost is so high for those 21 units. So we're gonna actually, so after looking at this, we just really felt that the $330,000 was the target, and that is what you would ask us to look at. And so we went back to the drawing board and looked at an alternative layout, and we would like to go over that second layout today to come up with a potential opportunity that we really believe that we can hit that $330,000 mark for our workers here in Bandon. I'm gonna turn it back over to Alex.
Yeah, so we were pretty disappointed with that initial layout, and the cost associated with that development, so we went back to the drawing board. So just as a quick reminder, the initial layout, we didn't develop tax lot 4001, which is the tax lot that's below the junior varsity field, you couldn't get to it. Tax lot 5100 is inaccessible, so that's not part of the development. And we've got about $1 million in needed infrastructure improvements for sewer, water, and storm drainage that are needed regardless of how many houses we build. So, with all that in mind, we looked at, is there a better option? And so the biggest constraint with the first layout is the one access. So we looked at it from a different perspective. What happens if we add a second access point that's far enough away from the initial access point to meet fire code requirements? And there are separation requirements for the two accesses. We get this located right next to each other. And it has to do with the geometry of the development. So this is what we came up with the idea that, or with removing the constraint of the first access and putting a second access in far enough away from the first to meet fire code. And this opens up the development a ton. It opens up the south into the east by using the varsity bar field as part of the development. This concept, specifically with the second access, allows us to expand the number of single-family homes from 21 to 50. It allows us to get more creative with the types of housing units, access to those housing units, offer more variety with the lot sizes, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what that resulted in with those different lot sizes that this layout opened up. And we were also able to add an apartment complex with direct access from that new secondary access, specifically so those tenants aren't driving right into the middle of our new residential subdivision with 24 apartments, so that the site can now serve a wider variety of employees and income levels. This layout creates economies of scale with those utility and infrastructure costs, so that $1 million of infrastructure costs that we need, by being able to spread those costs over 74 units instead of 24. This layout, I originally said it allows us, but it's actually going to require us to do improvements all along 11th Street, which I think is good for the city of Bandon. I think that's good for that corridor that so many people drive to when they go to the beach. It's going to look beautiful. And the big picture is this lowers the introductory cost of home ownership for the project. And yeah, we'll go into those numbers here in a second. So the elephant in the room with Plan B is it uses the current varsity ball field. For this option to work, we all fully realize that we need to find a win-win for everybody if that ball field gets used, and we think we have one. So this is not a news flash. You guys all know this, but those existing softball fields they're rough, right? They're in pretty terrible shape. And I'm sure the school board has had conversations that your softball complex is a candidate for a Title IX complaint compared to what you have at the boys baseball field. And I mention that because I just went through this with the Roseburg School District. They had a Title IX complaint filed about their girls softball field. And interestingly enough, That complaint was not for anyone who lived in Roseburg. It was from a downtown Washington person. The Roseburg School District was found in violation, and I got a phone call from Jared Gordon one night, the school superintendent, telling me that we needed to design, get permitted, and construct a new softball complex. National Boys had within 15 months to meet the workout agreement. It was a miracle we made that deadline. We had a lot of dominoes fall in line to make it work. I was also unpleasantly surprised at how much input the complaintee, is that the right term, complaintee, had in our design. They had to approve everything we're doing. And it was a really expensive endeavor for the school district. At some point in the future, you guys can find yourself in that same boat. Our proposal includes fixing up the junior varsity field to bring you guys into compliance with Title IX, just like we did in Roseburg. So in return for use of the West Ball Field, we would like to fund the renovation of the East Ball Field to provide a field that meets Title IX requirements, creates an updated field for your teams to practice and play, and a better venue for your grandparents and parents to watch their kids play. Oh shoot, I have to say go slides.
Sorry.
So, my bad. Anyway, so those are pictures of the existing ball field. Just keep going. So these are just some pictures. These are some pictures of what we did in Roseburg. That is actually the new dugout that we just built for community college. And just an example of what one might look like. We know the new dugout in Bandon is going to be weatherproof. It's not going to look like that. We would bring the junior varsity field into compliance with Title IX, and that would include things like, in addition to the Title IX stuff, a new scoreboard, dugouts that are weatherproofed, that have building storage equipment, new outfield fencing, future utility hookups for the dugout, sewer water for future bathrooms, drinking fountains, and bottle station fill-ups, grandstand viewing improvements, practice area improvements, and obviously we would sit down with the school district and specifically your athletic director and work through this list of exactly what we're going to do. But we estimate the cost of those improvements, the investment that Matt would make in those fields at $280,000 if funded and constructed privately, which is not an insignificant amount. So that's our win-win idea with option 2. We give you guys a new softball field that is beautiful, fun to play on, and keeps you out of Title IX compliance issues. And with that, we'll turn back on. Yeah, she's going to talk about all the housing options with this layout.
Thanks, Alex. So this is a concept of what the second layout would look like. As you can see, this is looking from the football complex across the street. And you can see that the improvement would be along 11th Street is exactly what Alex is talking about, that it would be improved with the sidewalk all the way down in front of the community. And that we think is a really important aspect, because this is your showcase to come here tonight, as well as for many of your visitors that are coming out to the ocean and to the city park area. In addition, when you think about that access, there's going to be access to the school for school students to be able to have a safe access and be able to have the sidewalks to get to and from the school. In addition, you can see that the different types of colors of homes, this may not be exactly what's going to be painted, but what we are hoping to do is that we want to have that same coastal community feel that you have throughout the city. And so we want this to blend with the neighborhood that's next door. It's a residential, nice beach feeling, instead of some of the real dark colors that you might see in other places across the state. Next slide, please. So just to kind of give you an overview, this is a conceptual plan of what these 74 housing units would look like. And as Alex said, we really feel like this offers a great opportunity for the workforce in Bandon. What this is offering is everything from an apartment all the way up to a single family home. That could be a 4-bedroom, an option for a larger family. Specifically, just to point a few things out, you'll notice that the orange colored at the top, those are actually cottage type communities, a cottage type home. And these are small attached products, so they would be townhomes. And it was really something that was very important for 2 reasons. Number one, we wanted it to look very appealing from across the street and be able to see the entrance of the community. Secondly, Matt was adamant that we were going to bring a house to market that was under $330,000. And he's been adamant about that since the day we started. And so this was an opportunity for us to do that, and I'll be able to show you this floor plan in a second. The yellow homes are the 3 homes that I have just showed you, between 1,000 and the 1,425 square feet. Those homes are perfect for first-time home buyers. They're also perfect for young families that are raising kids. So it really encourages a nice place for the kids to grow up. And you'll see that there is a green space area with the hope that the kids can actually have a little park or green open space area that they can, kick the ball around, etc. behind those homes. In addition, on the left-hand side, you'll see the beige color. Those are 8 single-family homes as well. These are larger single-family homes. And these range from 1,500 square feet up to 2,000 square feet. And then if you jump over to the right-hand side, you'll see the orange or dark orange colored building. That is actually the Dormy apartment. That is 24 apartment building units. Those will be studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom apartments. And I think what is really interesting about that location is I've seen lots of developments in my day, and I will say that this location is kind of a perfect location for the apartment complex. It has its own access to get into the apartment complex. There's a separate access to get to the other homes. In addition, it's kind of snuggled up against that area that there really doesn't have any access to other neighbors, etc. And there is an area that there will be on-site parking, so the on-site parking will be right next to the apartment. And then you can see the new enhanced Title IX varsity ball field there as well. Next slide, please. This is just another angle here, and just to note on the left-hand side corner that you can see the 2 young children there playing. That is actually where the ball field would be located. Next slide. So this is the home that Matt was insistent upon us figuring out for this community, and I appreciate his push to come up with I think it's a beautiful product. We have built it in 2 of our communities. It's been very, very well received. We did make a few changes to it, and specifically what we did here is we attached the garages. So it has a townhome look, but you don't have any attachments of living space. And so there's no fear of being able to hear the neighbors because you're attached at the garage. So maybe if you're playing in the garages, you might be able to hear each other. But this is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It's 800 square feet. It's very livable, and it does have a shared bathroom. Also has a separate utility room with an area with a nice closet to be able to have some storage in the laundry room area. Next slide. And then the 3 additional larger homes that we would be offering, these are actually our best sellers that we have in the company. And so, we sell about 2,000 homes a year between Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. And this is our number one seller. It is Hudson. It's about 1,574 square feet. It's 3 bedroom, 2 bath. It's an open concept home. Has a nice breakfast bar area that you can sit up, and then you have the primary suite is separate from the other bedrooms, so you have some privacy as well. Next slide. This is our Pacific. It's 1,805 square feet. This is kind of a luxury wow home. You can actually add a 4th bedroom to this. You can also entertain very well here with a separate either family room. Or you can use it as a den. You can also use it as a playroom. And there is an option to be able to do even a junior suite in this plan. And then lastly, we have our Stone Ridge, which is our 2-story plan. It's just over 2,000 square feet. It's a 3 or 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath. And on this plan, you can actually get a master, you can get a primary suite on the main, or you can have the primary suite upstairs with a attached bathroom. Next slide, please. So in addition, on the second layout, you would also have the option to be able to have the dormy apartments. And so there would be 24 units that individuals that are not quite able to afford a home would have an opportunity to move into the dormy apartments, and then within a couple of years be able to save to be able to move into the home right next door. And not have to leave the community that they may love, especially if it's right across the street from the school. In addition, here's another picture of the dormy apartment with the parking. And I'm gonna have you push back up one. Okay, on the first one, I did just want to point out that on the left-hand side there, that is actually the laundry facility and the utility, and so that would actually be where the washers and dryers are right on site. Next slide, please. So this layout, just to run through it again, this is the 74 units. It would consist of 8 attached single family homes, and those units are those 800 square footers. In addition, there would be 42 detached single family homes and then the 24 apartment units. The total land value for subsidy would be the $1.2 million that was discussed initially, plus the valuation of the varsity ball field. So that would be an addition. Specifically in regards to the total land development costs, that does go up to just over $4 million for the land, or the land development, and that equates to about $81,000 for each home site. We retooled the pricing in regards to what that would look like, and we would be able to start those 800 square foot houses at $299,000. And if you remember, it's 330 is the number that we have been really focusing on, and this gives some opportunity to have some additional units that would be lower than that $330,000 price point. In addition, the apartments would start at about $1,250 for rent per month. And then you would then get a full 11th Street update, the renovated ball field for Title IX included, and the updated designated green space in the community. Next slide, please. There's the overall home update. And those are the 2 different options there side by side, just for ease, if you're looking through the packet. Next slide. And you can see this is the affordability gap that we're trying to hit, at that, if we're using the first affordability, that option one would be putting us at 433. For layout one and layout two would equate, to lower than the 330,000 at the 299 price point. Next slide. Okay, I just wanted to, and I know that there are some questions about deed restrictions and community land trusts. And I will tell you that over the last few years, Ingrams has been able to build with numerous cities and community land trusts in a few different states. We're currently building a 28 lot community at the Coast Falls. We are doing another one in Walla Walla right now with a community land trust. We're working with the city of Sutherland, currently with some employers and the city as well. And the Department of State Lands in regards to some, the Common School Fund and Bend for school teachers. And I know it may be a little bit confusing in regards to what this includes and what the community land trust covers, et cetera. I will tell you that there's a lot of flexibility in regards to how community land trusts can be set up and managed. But it really just depends in regards to what the original RFQ was and what the city and school district are requiring. Specifically, what we have seen and have put in regards to the restrictions in other locations has been based on limiting income restrictions. So having income restrictions on the home, that you have to be employed, potentially, I mean, being an employee or employed in the county. It can be based on preference of school district employees and city staff. All of those things will be required and will be included in the development agreement. And that is the next step of what we would be doing. But that would not be something that would, we wouldn't be allowed to continue until that development agreement is completed. In addition, the community land trust would be managed by the Southern Oregon Coast Regional Housing. They are a local entity based here in Coos Bay, and they would be making sure that the property would be kept up, and would also be making sure that these deed restrictions would be kept up and intact for the longevity of the community. I think that that's all I have. So I'm going to turn it back over to Tori, I guess, for questions, if there's any questions.
Right. Yes, city and district staff would recommend to the city council and the district board this evening to approve the preliminary concepts that have been submitted. In addition, by consensus authorization for city staff to proceed with the entitlement process. Additionally, if the district is amenable to incorporating the varsity ball field as part of this project, then I would recommend that the district direct district staff to bring forth an agreement memorializing those deal terms between the developer and the school district at a future date and time. As indicated by Deb, the next steps of the process, if we were to obtain approval this evening, that would then commence all the heavy lifting that would require the work on the disposition and development agreement. And as indicated by Deb, that would include all the covenants and restrictions that would apply to the affordability. It would identify the priority selection requirements and establish the covenants that would be recorded on the property that would be made available for sale and purchase. In addition, we would work with the project developer to complete the applications that are required in an effort to obtain planning commission and city council approval of the related development approvals. So with that, that concludes my comments. And with that, do we now open it up for questions?
I have a question. May I?
Yes.
You mentioned, I understood, if you're living in an apartment and later on you could eventually get into a home, Could you explain how that's going to work?
So the apartment is, that they would be available for rent. And then if there were homes available, then it would be an opportunity for them to move into them.
And who did they buy the home from?
So the homes are going to be, available through Simplicity Homes
At the same price as the original price, or is it the homeowner could raise the price?
So that's what the deed restriction would be required, is that there would be a restriction, in regards to the affordability and how much, and keeping it at a certain rate for, a certain wage rate.
Thank you.
You bet.
Who owns the land? The homeowner or the
The homeowner does not.
community land trust?
So in a community land trust, the community land trust owns the land.
And so the homeowners own their own, just the houses.
That's correct.
And what about improvements that are done? Would that be figured into?
So as part of the agreement, the development agreement that, and working with the community land trust, all of those would be worked out. And as I said, there's lots of flexibility in regards to how you set up a community land trust. But specifically, the most important thing is that when there is a community land trust, that they're making sure that the outside and exteriors of those homes are up to a certain standard. And when they go to sell, because there's a community land trust is like a property management company over the top of that, they're ensuring that safety and that the house is up to a certain level before it's sold to the next person again. It's really one of the best things about the community land trust is that you are ensuring that house, for the longevity is in good shape.
Would they also, manage their apartments, the CLT?
So that's a great question. I failed to say that. The apartments actually will not be part of the community land trust. The apartments will be owned and managed by Dormy Apartments.
In the common ground, in between the houses and the apartment, that would be managed by the CLT?
That's correct. So it's actually a property management company that they would be working with, but yes, it would be managed by them.
Do they, would there be a homeowner's fee?
So it would be a community management fee, but yes, and that's how they set it up, but it's very similar to that. So yes, and that's how it's maintained.
I assume it would be fairly minimal.
So it's definitely based on, so when you think about how instead of having a homeowners association, you would have a community management fee, you would have a community land trust fee. And so that fee is basically offsetting that. And it does matter in regards to how many homes are in it, because usually the higher the number of homes, it reduces the amount, because you're spreading it over more homes.
And the roadway and the sidewalks, would that be owned and managed by the city? That's public right away.
All of it's out. Outside, it's all public right away.
Are you finding that it's difficult for people to mortgage these homes? I mean, how do they get the first financing when they don't own the land? Are they having a hard time going through conventional financing methods?
So, we have worked through this in numerous locations, and so there is a process of making sure that there's opportunities to work with different lenders. There are more and more lenders that are being able to finance this. There is specifically, I'm going to speak recently to a project that we're building in Post Falls. Post Falls has 28 homes. They are deed restricted. There is a question about the mortgages. We have worked with numerous banks up in the Coeur d'Alene area, and they are working directly with the homeowners, and they're being able to hold those on their own portfolio. There is actually an opportunity to utilize, it's called Grounded Solutions, and you can actually sell these through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the mortgages, but you do have to ensure that the bank that is offering the mortgage has the Grounded Solutions as part of their program.
What about property tax? There's that with the CO.
Yeah, firstly, the property tax here in Bandon is so low, it would be nominal. But with that said, I believe that the taxes will be paid through the CLT.
To by the homeowner?
Correct.
Just a house.
Got a question. If the apartment version of this, say we looked at layout, the original layout that was over what we had hoped it would be, is Dormy still interested if we were to say, don't like that one, that's too dense, and we took out those apartments?
Well, I can answer that. The answer is that I would definitely have interest in following any road that this project goes down, but the fact of the matter is that if you took out the apartments and you just did option one and we did 21 units, it's unaffordable. And I think that it brought in, you know, I'm a developer, so I'm the team leader, but I'm not the expert when it comes to fire and safety code, but I get the numbers based off of these, and that's where I am an expert. And if I changed out this entire team up here and found new builders, new engineer and everything, they would come back and unfortunately say the same thing, that you're not gonna be able to get anything in here under, certainly not under 300,000 and definitely not under 400,000. And the whole goal in my mind is to meet the goal of providing affordable, quality workforce housing for this community.
And the variety, I mean, there's so many people that can't get a mortgage. Like we talk about mortgages, people literally cannot get one. So they rent, like that's the point. Some people cannot own homes.
Yeah, and to go back to the question about the mortgages as well, you know, I've been speaking, you know, because while we work on this, I'm also working in the background talking with banks and lenders about this, that, and the other, including, you know, just what we're doing here. And some of the local banks here, bank managers have expressed interest in participating from the lending side as well.
And I don't understand how development works,
No,
but
that's
I
okay.
do wonder if when you break ground and you get started and costs continue to go up, what do you have the right to leave out? Because it would be a shame to look at this and say, well, we have to leave our sidewalks out. Ooh, that would change. Or we have to leave out half the greenscaping, or how does that get handled?
Yes, that will be regulated by the disposition and development agreement. It's a very comprehensive document establishing responsibilities and obligations of the developer, and that would be detailed in the agreement. And we would then execute the terms of the agreement through legal action to ensure that it was enforced.
I have a question. So you got 4 different tiers of homes in layout 2, and all of it starts at $299. Do you have projected sale prices for the other 3 tiers of houses as well?
Right now, we don't, John. I think it's going to, the fact that Matt is willing to say we're going to sell these at $299 is pretty impressive. And there can be some changes with it, but the reality is that he's committed to say this is what we're going to market with at $299, which I think is really impressive, because we're a long ways away from, you know, by the time we get done and actually start selling these homes. So I don't have those right now, but we as we get a little bit closer, but we do need to make sure that we know how many homes and what the development costs are really going to come in at.
I would like to say this, and I've been kind of advised not to say it. But I'm gonna say it anyways. We're gonna bring in a home, these numbers are hard currently, these are real numbers, they're hard. And regardless of what happens here, and regardless of how much money we potentially lose on it, we're gonna bring in the older at less than $300,000.
I think anything with a 2 in front of it right now is admirable.
Well, yeah, we're between the rents and the 299, we're serving 3 separate types of living below 80% of AMI with that. So home ownership can begin below 80% of AMI. Rentals obviously are below 80% AMI. But as far as the other ones go, that's something that we need to delve into deeper with Tori. I can guarantee you that even if we're gonna lose $50,000 a home, we're gonna sell $299. I'm on public, that's what we're gonna do, or less.
So, well, while we have you there saying you're on public. You're gonna be the one managing the apartments, right? Or
Yes.
you will be?
Correct.
So in here you have that, at a rent price of $12.50.
Yep.
How do we lock that in or regulate that? Because once this is done, I go to have full control over those.
That is correct. The answer is, well, I'd like to say you have to take my word for it, but you have to take my word for it. The way that it'll work is that I run my numbers for these workforce. I do luxury back home, I do all sorts of different things across the country, but when it comes to these, we run it off of it's not that simple, but it sounds simple, but it's a DSCR. And the bank typically requires between 1.2 and 1.25 for a debt service coverage ratio. That's the bare minimum that a bank is gonna say, you need to hit this or else we're gonna take it away from you. And that's what that number equates to, and that's how we look at it annually, year over year. That rent number also doesn't include, that fully includes, I should say, your utilities, internet, so that's like one stop that you make one payment. Because I look at what's around here, I know it's hard to take it from me because it's me, you don't know me, but the fact of the matter is, I really my dad always says I'm gonna die of enlargement of the heart, and the fact of the matter is, I don't have to make, a 100% return on something, I just have to make enough to make the bank happy, make my investors happy, and it's a numbers game. And so that's what I'm saying they're gonna be at, and God forbid that inflation spikes 100%, this whole project goes kaput, but otherwise, I say it's $12.50, it's gonna be $12.50. And there might be some sort of inflationary change, $12.50 and 55 cents, but other than that, that's how it's gonna work, is that debt service coverage ratio.
If I could just add, in my experience, what we have been able to do is establish regulations setting forth the rental limits. So you have different income levels. You have very low, moderate, above moderate. And in an apartment development like this, you would identify a mix of units. So let's say a percentage of the units are targeting the low income category, and these are all set by the state of Oregon. And with that, it allows for some incremental increases, but these standards or ranges are set by the state again. So with that, we would be looking at locking in the composition of the units that make up the apartment development in accordance with state regulations and standards for income limits, and that would be applied to the apartment complex.
Would that be for subsidized housing? Yeah, the regulations? Yeah.
No, this is just setting forth the, as referenced in the PowerPoint presentation, there was a 4-person household, and they would generate an income of $48,000, and that translated into a maximum purchase price of $330,000. So the same would apply to rental units. So based on the composition and income levels that we're targeting, those will all be negotiated through the development agreement process. We're not quite there yet, but I envision that a mix of the units, some will be assigned to very low income category, low, moderate, and above moderate, which would be market. So the idea is that you have a blend of income limits within the apartment complex And those income limits would be established and regulated.
So what he's saying is that rather than, because we're not gonna do any subsidization, I am not a
No,
section 8, section
Okay,
42.
good.
What he's saying is that if you apply, and you online, so like you apply for an apartment right now, and we use the rule of thirds, so you have to make, 3 times what your rent is. Well, what Tori's saying is that we would lock in a few to say that, like, they have to be working, they have to earn an income, but they can't make more than 45,000. But they have to have W-2s, 1099s, they have to go through the market process, but we'd say this one up here is for somebody who, is making $40,000. So that's for that income level, but it's not subsidized at all, it's just keeping an eye out for people who need that at that income level. But they would rent it just the same.
All right, say somebody moves in and they decide they don't like the rain here. And so they move out and they rent that house?
Again, this would all be regulated through the development agreement, and the terms of the agreement would be enforced by the entity overseeing the property and managing it. The requirement would be that if an individual were to leave the property, it would have to be put on sale. Normally, the city would retain the first right of refusal, so if there was any violations that have been reported or identified, the city could pursue legal action and acquire the unit and then control its resale. But in the future, any, with the covenants that would be recorded on the property, any future resale of homes would have to meet those guidelines and requirements and would have to be vetted. The applicants would have to be vetted to ensure that they meet those requirements.
But so none of them will be rentals?
Correct.
Okay.
Does that go with all of the homes? All of the homes are gonna have.
All the ones that are regulated, yes.
I saw in here that it says that the project aims to hold some of them under certain CLTs and deed restrictions. So what would stop anybody from a developer or people to just come in and buy the second homes or?
Yes, everything that is controlled through the disposition and development agreement would be controlled through covenants. And we would ensure that there are provisions that prohibit the rental of these units.
But that would just be a specific number of the units, not all of the units in the.
We haven't discussed it yet, but I would envision that all the units would be restricted so that they would not be permitted to be rented. Right? Well, we're trying to encourage home ownership here.
Right.
And then with the complement of the apartment complex, then we provide a full rental product. And that's what's unique about this development with the current zoning that we have in place at the city. The idea is to create a housing development that targets all the types of residents that would benefit from this workforce housing product. So you have temporary seasonal housing that's accommodated by the apartments. You have younger families or starter families that would be accommodated by the road type product or townhome product fronting on 11th Street. And then you have more established younger families that would be likely to reside in the homes within the central portion of the development. And you have larger, more established families that would likely purchase those on the western portion that currently abuts existing residential. So the unique aspect of this, it's a combination of all housing product types, really targeting the need of our workforce. This will serve as a model for every community up and down the coast. It will likely win state awards, and I'm confident about that.
You mentioned they couldn't be rented out, but the big elephant in the room here is second homes. They're not rented out. They're not rented out, but they're just empty most of the time because the owners live in Medford. Now, how are we going to take and address that issue?
In the vetting and screening process to ensure that a resident is qualified and eligible to purchase, you essentially do an investigation and analysis on their income, their assets, and through that process is how these applicants would be vetted. And if they're deemed to be eligible and qualified to meet these requirements, then they would be given an opportunity to purchase a unit. So that would be done on an ongoing, regular basis or upon the sale or future resale of these units.
Plus, it's one of the things we talked.
This is for workforce.
Yeah.
Are we going to let people from Medford, from other communities come in here and buy up a home, not to live, but just to have a second home in Bandon, which is for.
No, the answer I provided,
I know it didn't-
was indicating that that would not be permitted within
Yeah.
this
He
development.
literally said
The
it's an
second
application
home, the
process.
second home would
There
not
will
be
be
permitted.
research, and you won't be able to apply
But
for a
this is
home if
for
you have a second
workforce
home.
people
And you
that
have to work
work
here
in
then.
Bandon.
You have to have provided W-2.
Yeah, we would not permit second units here or second, homes, because we're looking at their assets, and that will determine whether or not they qualify. If they'd like to have more than one home, they wouldn't meet the income requirements.
Some of us just came over from the Gravel Point development session, and now we're hearing about this one. So there's more water usage, there's more sewer, demand on sewers. How are you addressing that with the city? Do we have the water? Do we have the sewer capacity there?
Yes, we currently have the water capacity and sewer capacity. The issue with our water capacity is storage capacity. And we have an impoundment that we dredge, and we'll continue to dredge regularly to ensure that we have the raw water storage capacity. And that in itself is going to sustain the water needs for the community. The facility itself is capable of transmitting more water than we could produce. But at the end of the day, the issue of water has to do with our ability to store raw water, which is then filtered and processed by our water plant and then distributed citywide. So with that, this development would not provide any adverse impact to that, and we would adequately be able to provide water needs and sewer needs.
Okay, so let me ask a question. So tonight you say you want us as to make a decision. What are we looking at for decision? Either the first part or the second part? But the second part, if we all like that, that would be up to the school board because they have to give up the ball field.
That's
So I don't
correct.
know
The
why-
city council specifically is being asked to approve the conceptual preliminary drawings that are before you this evening, and also to authorize the commencement of the entitlement process. Separately, the school district is being asked to decide whether or not they would be willing to entertain incorporating the varsity ball field as part of the project as represented in alternative 2, that would then increase the total capacity of units from 21 to 74, and with that bring the price point down. But since that property is controlled by the school district, that is only a decision the school district can make. And if that is the direction the school district is headed, then district staff will then work with the developer to bring forth an agreement memorializing that and setting forth his obligations for use of that property, including upgrading and renovating the ball field to Title IX compliance.
And if I understand, our lawyer told us at our last get together like this, that it will be at this decision that the money is committed, that we're invested in. Is that right?
What this does is it just allows us to invest the required staff time, legal time, and move forward with the entitlement as proposed this evening. We would hate to get down this road, present these concepts to the city council and the district board in their final stage, and the project be denied. So this gives us some authorization and reassurance that we're all working towards a common goal. And, whether it's alternative 1 or alternative 2, we would like to have it clarified sooner than later.
Do you need that clarification tonight?
Yes, but that would come from the school district because they control that property.
So do you need?
What we're looking for is just consensus authorization from the council.
Right.
they can't make that decision tonight.
But this,
It has to be on the board.
council to make our motion.
Yes, essentially what I'm looking for is there going to be a project or not?
Okay.
We can't make any motions because this is a work session.
Yeah.
You can tell us, you can direct.
By a nod of heads
You
or
can direct, you can direct Mr. Contreras to bring it back at another meeting for the vote of yes or no, but you can say we're for it, so let's bring it to the next meeting.
or to be less informal, just give me an idea as to whether or not the majority of people want this project.
We don't have to vote on it. No, you just say, we're going to authorize that.
I was at the mayor moderator.
Yeah.
Is it appropriate
Yeah, so,
to get comments from the people that have been sitting?
No.
I think that.
Question slash idea, so the softball field, it seems awesome to renovate it. The JV field, I do believe that the high school mainly just uses the one field. However, the youth softball does use that secondary field. This would push them somewhere else. Would it be out of the question to, even if it was a small amount, either work on the softball field that is straight north of, behind the middle school there? Because they would either get pushed there or they would get pushed over to the city park. Now, the city park does have 3 fields that youth softball could play on. However, they have permanent mounds on for baseball. So even if it was a donation of some of the really nice portable mounds, then those could be moved off and on. So softball could use that field.
The answer is, yeah, we're not gonna let that stand in the way of this product. We'll help you with either getting, temporary stuff or talk through maybe a longer term vision for something, yes.
Okay.
But it absolutely temporarily we'll get you some temporary fencing and, mounds.
Well,
Yes.
can we get a,
We're trying to make a contingency on the council as to whether we want to proceed with basically with option 2, and that we know that the decision of whether or not that will happen lies with the school board, because that's what it says here on our, on our agenda.
Yeah, correct. So.
But we have a
Maybe
consensus with the council. Yeah, to move forward on.
Yeah.
the city council make the concessions to move forward with option 2? Raise your hand and let me know. That's your concession for option 2. Well, we're done.
Alright,
I want to ask
so we have a consensus to move forward on,
to put it on the agenda.
to put it on the agenda for the next school board meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
And I know we have our lawyer here, can I ask Robin or something? Hey, and isn't it at this point that then we tell people who have asked how did that meeting go, yes, we have sold our property, school property?
No.
We haven't sold it yet.
Yeah, not sold it.
No, so we're not selling anything.
But we already mentioned.
No,
we're just going into
Yeah,
a
well-
trust. So you don't know what's selling now.
Going into a land.
Yes, to be clear, the school district board is not making any decision regarding that property. You were directing staff to bring back a report so they can be noticed and agendized for official consideration. And that will likely be accompanied with some type of agreement between the district and the developer establishing his responsibilities if you were to allow the development to include that property in exchange for what. And in addition, this would likely result in an amended appraisal because the original appraisal never considered the use of the ball field and or the area that was referenced as undeveloped. So this will likely trigger the need for an updated appraisal and then additional agreement terms that are negotiated between the district and the developer on what his commitment is to you all for using that property.
Yes, sir.
You're in.
Yeah.
Wow.
We made our decision, we go get it.